listen, sir.
I'm sorry for that, for your sake. I don't play accurately. Anyone can play accurately, but I play with wonderful expression. As far as the piano is concerned, sentiment is my forte. I keep science for life.
Yes, sir.
And speaking of the science of life, have you got the cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir.
Oh, by the way, Lane, I see from your book that on Thursday night, when Lord Shorman and Mr. Worthing were dining with me, 8 bottles of champagne are entered as having been consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Why is it that at a bachelor's establishment the servants invariably drink the champagne? I ask merely for information.
I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I have often observed that in married households, the champagne is rarely of a first-rate brand.
Good heavens, is marriage so demoralizing as that?
I believe it is a very pleasant state, sir. I have had very little experience of marriage up to the present. I have only been married once, and that was in consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
I don't know I am much interested in your family life, Lane.
No, sir. It is not a very interesting subject. I never think of it myself.
Very natural, I am sure. That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. Really, if the lower orders don't set us a good example, what on earth is the use of them? They seem as a class to have absolutely no sense of moral responsibility.
Mr. Earnest Worthing.
How are you, my dear Ernest? What brings you up to town?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. What else brings one anywhere, eating as usual, I see, Algy.
I believe it is customary in good society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
In the country.
What on earth do you do there?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people. It is excessively boring.
And who are the people you amuse?
Oh, neighbours.
You have nice neighbours in your part of Shropshire.
Perfectly horrid. Never speak to one of them.
How immensely you must amuse them. By the way, Shropshire is your county, is it not?
Oh, yes, Shropshire, of course. Yes. Hello. Why all these cups? Why cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance in one so young? Who's going to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolyn.
Well, how perfectly delightful.
Yes, that is all very well. But I'm afraid Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of your being here.
May I ask why?
My dear boy, the way you flirt with Gwendolyn is perfectly disgraceful. It's almost as bad as the way Gwendolyn flirts with you.
I am in love with Gwendolyn. I've come up to town expressly to propose to her.
I thought you came up for pleasure. I call that business.
Oh, how utterly unromantic of you.
I really don't see anything romantic in proposing. It is very romantic to be in love, but there is nothing romantic about a definite proposal. Why, one may be accepted. One usually is, I believe. And then the excitement is all over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If ever I get married, I'll certainly try to forget the fact.
Oh, I have no doubt about that, my dear Algy. The divorce court was specially invented for people whose memories are so curiously constituted.
No, there is no use speculating on the subject. Divorces are made in heaven. Please don't touch the cucumber sandwiches. They're made especially for Aunt Augusta.
Well, you've been eating them all the time.
That's quite a different matter. Here's my aunt. Have some bread and butter. The bread and butter is for Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn is devoted to bread and butter.
And what good bread and butter it is, too.
I do. You need not eat as if you're going to eat at all. You act as if you're married to her already. You are not married to her already, and I don't think you ever will be.
Why on earth do you say that?
Well, in the first place, girls never marry the men they flirt with. Girls don't think it right.
Oh, that is nonsense.
It isn't. It is a great truth. It accounts for the extraordinary number of bachelors one sees all over the place. In the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
My fellow, Gwendolyn is my first cousin. And if you are going to marry her, we must clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? What on earth do you mean by that? What do you mean, Algy, by Cecily? I don't know anyone of the name of Cecily.
Bring me that cigarette case Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room the last time he dined here.
Yes, sir.
Do you mean to say that you had my cigarette case all this time? I wish to goodness you would let me know. I've been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard. I was very nearly offering a large reward.
Well, I wish you would offer one. I happen to be more than usually hard up.
There's no use offering a large reward now that the thing is found.
I think that is rather mean of you, Ernest, I must say. However, it makes no matter, for now that I look at the inscription inside, I see that the thing isn't yours after all.
Of course it's mine. You've seen me with it 100 times. And you've no right whatsoever to read what is written inside. It's a very ungentlemanly thing to read a private cigarette case.
It is absurd to have a hard and fast rule about what one should read and what one shouldn't read. More than half of modern culture depends on what one shouldn't read.
I am very well aware of the fact. And I don't propose to discuss modern culture. It isn't the sort of thing one should talk of in private. I simply want my cigarette case
Yes,
back.
but this is not your cigarette case. This cigarette case is a present from someone in the name of Cecily. And you said you don't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you want to know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt.
Yes. Charming old lady she is, too, lives up in Tunbridge Wells. Just give it back to me,
Why does
Algy.
she call herself Little Cecily if she is your aunt and lives in Tunbridge Wells? From Little Cecily with her fondest love.
My good fellow, what on earth is there in that? Some aunts are tall, some aunts are not tall. That is surely a matter that an aunt may be allowed to decide for herself. You seem to be under the impression that every aunt must be exactly like your aunt. It's absurd. Oh, for heaven's sake, give me back my cigarette case.
But why does she call you her dear uncle? From Little Cecily with her fondest love to her dear Uncle Jack. There is no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small aunt, but an aunt, no matter what her size may be, calls her own nephew her uncle. I can't quite make out. Besides, your name isn't Jack, it's Ernest.
Oh, it isn't Ernest, it's Jack.
You've always told me it was Ernest. I have introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. You look as if your name was Ernest. You are the most earnest-looking person I know. It is absurd you're saying your name is not Ernest. It's on your card. Here is one of them. Ernest Worthing, B4 the Albany. I'll keep this as proof your name is Ernest, should you ever attempt to deny it to me, or to Gwendolyn, or to anyone else.
Well, I go by Ernest in town and Jack in the country, and the cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that does not account for the fact that your little Aunt Cecily calls you her dear uncle. Come on, old boy, you'd best have the whole thing out at once.
My dear Algy, you talk as if you were a dentist. It is very vulgar to talk like a dentist when one isn't a dentist. It produces a false impression.
That is exactly what dentists always do. Now go on. I must say, I've always suspected of you being a secret and confirmed Bunburyist, and I am quite sure of it now.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by a Bunburyist?
I'll explain to you that incomparable expression as soon as you explain to me why you are called Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Now produce your explanation, and pray make it improbable.
Oh, my dear Algy, there's nothing improbable about my explanation at all. In fact, it's perfectly ordinary. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a little boy, made me in his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as her uncle from motives of respect that you could not possibly appreciate, lives at my house in the country under the charge of her admirable governess, Miss Prism.
Where is that place in the country, by the way?
That is nothing to you, my dear boy. You are not going to be invited. I may tell you candidly the place is not in Shropshire.
I suspected as much, dear fellow. I have Bunburied in Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. Now go on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear Algy, I don't know if you'll be able to understand my real motives. You're hardly serious enough. When one is placed into the position of guardian, one must adopt a very high moral tone on all subjects. It's one's duty to do so. And given that a high moral tone can hardly be said to condense to either one's health or one's happiness, in order to get up to town, I've always pretended to have a younger brother of the name of Earnest, who lives in the Albany and who gets into the most dreadful scrapes. That, my dear Algy, is the whole truth, pure and simple.
The truth is rarely pure and never simple. Modern culture would be very tedious if it were either, and modern literature a complete impossibility.
That wouldn't at all be a bad thing.
Literary criticism is not your forte, my dear friend. Don't try it. You should save that for the men who haven't been at university. They write about it so much in the daily papers. What you really are is a Bunburyist. I was quite right in saying you're a Bunburyist. You are one of the most advanced Bunburyists I've ever met.
What on earth do you mean by that?
You have invented a very useful younger brother called Ernest, who you use to go up to town as often as you like. I have invented a perfectly invaluable invalid called Bunbury, whom I use to go into the country whenever I choose. Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. Why, were it not for Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, I wouldn't be able to dine with you tonight at Willis's, for I've actually been engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked you to dine with me anyway tonight.
I know. You're so bad with sending out invitations. It is very selfish of you. Nothing upsets one more than not receiving invitations.
You had much better go dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I haven't the smallest intention of doing anything of the kind. To begin with, I dined there on Monday, and Once a week is quite enough to dine with one's own relations. In the second place, whenever I do dine there, I am always treated as a member of the family, and sent down with either no woman at all, or two. In the third place, I know exactly who she'll place me next to tonight. She will place me next to Mary Farquhar, who always flirts across the table with her own husband. That is not very pleasant. Indeed, it is not even decent. And that sort of thing is enormously on the increase. The amount of women in London who flirt with their own husbands is perfectly scandalous. It looks so bad. It is simply washing one's clean linen in public. Besides, now that I know you to be a confirmed Bunburyist, I naturally want to talk to you about Bunbury. I want to tell you the rules.
I'm not a Bunburyist at all. If Gwendolen accepts me, I'm going to kill my younger brother. Indeed, I think I'll kill him in any case. Cecily is a little too interested in him. It's getting to be rather a bore, so I'm going to get rid of Ernest. And I suggest you do the same thing with with your invalid friend who has the absurd name.
Nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury, and should you get married, which to me seems extremely problematic, you'll be very glad to know Bunbury. Married men who don't know Bunbury have a very hard time of it.
And that is nonsense. If I marry a sweet, refined girl like Gwendolen, and she's the only girl who I loved in my life, who I would marry, then I certainly wouldn't want to know a Bunbury.
Then your wife will. You don't seem to realize that in married life, 3 is company and 2 is none.
And that, my dear friend, is the theory that the corrupt French drama has been propounding for the last 50 years.
Yes, and that the happy English home is proven in half the time.
Oh, don't try to be so cynical. It's perfectly easy to be cynical.
My dear boy, it isn't easy to be anything nowadays. There's an awful lot of beastly competition about. No, that must be Aunt Augusta. Only relatives or creditors ever ring in that Wagnerian manner. Now, if I take her away for 10 minutes so you have an opportunity of proposing to Gwendolen, may I dine with you tonight at Willis's?
I suppose so, if you want to.
Yes, but be serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about meals. It is so selfish of them.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you are behaving very well.
I'm feeling quite well, Aunt Augusta.
That's not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together.
Dear me, you are smart.
I am always smart. Am I not, Mr. Worthing?
You're quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that. It would leave no room for developments. And I intend to develop in many directions.
I'm sorry if we are a little late, Algernon, but I was obliged to call on dear Lady Harbury. I hadn't been there since her poor husband's death. I never saw a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. And now I'll have a cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Won't you come and sit here, Gwendolen?
Thanks, Mamma. I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Good heavens, Lane, where are the cucumber sandwiches? We ordered them specially.
There were no cucumbers in the market this morning, sir. I went down twice.
No cucumbers.
No, sir. Not even for ready money.
That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm terribly sorry, Aunt Augusta, about there being no cucumbers, not even for ready money.
It really makes no matter, Algernon. I had some crumpets with Lady Harbury, who seems to me to be living entirely for pleasure now.
Yes, I hear her hair has turned quite gold with grief.
It certainly has changed its colour. For what cause, I of course could not say. Thank you. Quite a treat for you tonight, Algernon. I'm going to send you down with Mary Farquhar. She's such a nice woman and so attentive to her husband. It's delightful to watch them.
I am afraid, Aunt Augusta, that I will have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight after all.
I hope not, Algernon. It would put my table completely out. Your uncle would have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he is accustomed to that.
It is a great bore and, needless to say, a terrible disappointment. But the fact is, I had a telegram to tell me that my poor invalid Bunbury seems to have fallen ill again. They seem to think I should be with him.
It is very strange. This Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Yes, Bunbury is a dreadful invalid.
Well, I think it is high time that this Mr. Bunbury made up his mind whether he was going to live or die. This shilly-shallying with the question is absurd. Nor do I in any way approve of the modern sympathy with invalids. I consider it morbid. Illness is hardly a thing to be encouraged in others. Health is the primary duty of life. And I'm always telling that to your poor uncle, but he never seems to take much notice as far as any improvement in his ailment goes. But I would be much obliged if you would ask Mr. Bunbury from me to be kind enough to not have a relapse on Saturday, for I rely on you to arrange my music for me. It's my last reception, and one wants something that will encourage conversation, particularly at the end of the season when everyone has said practically whatever they had to say, which in most cases is probably not much.
I'll speak to Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he is still conscious. But I think I can promise you he'll be all right by Saturday. The music, of course, is great difficulty. You see, when one plays good music, nobody listens. And when one plays bad music, nobody talks. But I'll run over the program if you would come with me to the next room.
It's very thoughtful of you, Algernon. I'm sure the programme will be delightful after a few expurgations. French songs I could not possibly allow. People seem to think them indecent and either look shocked, which is vulgar, or laugh, which is worse. But German seems to me a thoroughly respectable language, and indeed I believe it is so. Gwendolyn, you will accompany me?
Oh, certainly, Mamma.
Charming day it has been, Miss Fairfax.
Pray don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain that they mean something else. And that makes me so nervous.
I do mean something.
Oh, I thought so. I'm never wrong.
And I would like to be allowed to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
Yes, I would certainly advise you to do so. In fact, Mother has a way of coming back suddenly into a room that I've often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I first met you, I have admired you more than any other girl I have ever met since I met you.
Yes, I'm quite well aware of the fact. And I often wish that in public, at any rate, you had been more demonstrative. For me, you have always had an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. Really, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. The fact is constantly mentioned in the more expensive monthly magazines and has reached the provincial pulpits, I am told. And my ideal has always been to love someone of the name of Earnest. Oh, there's something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. The moment Algernon first mentioned to me that he had a friend called Earnest, I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolyn?
Passionately.
Oh, darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
My own Earnest.
But you don't really mean to say that you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Earnest.
Oh, but your name is Ernest.
Yes, I know, but supposing it wasn't, do you mean to say that you couldn't love me then?
Oh, that is clearly a metaphysical speculation, and like most metaphysical speculations, has very little reference at all to the actual facts of real life as we know them.
Well, personally, darling, I must say that I don't much care for the name of Ernest. I don't think the name suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Well, really, Gwendolyn, I must say that I think there are a lot of other, much nicer names out there. I think Jack, for instance, a charming
Oh,
name.
Jack! No! There's very little music in the name Jack, if any at all indeed. It does not thrill. It produces absolutely no vibrations. No, I've known several Jacks and they all without exception have been more than usually plain. Besides, Jack is a notorious domesticity for John. And I pity any woman who is married to a man called John. She's probably never been allowed to know the entrancing pleasures of a single moment's solitude. The only really safe name is Earnest.
Gwendolyn, I must be christened at once. I mean, we must be married at once. There is no time to be lost.
Married, Mr. Worthing?
Well, surely. You know that I love you, and you led me to believe, Miss Fairfax, that you were not absolutely indifferent to me.
I adore you, but you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing has been said at all about marriage. The subject has not even been touched on.
Well, shall I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity. And to spare you any possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing, I think it only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I am fully determined to accept you.
Oh, darling!
Mr. Worthing, what have you got to say to me?
Oh, you know what I've got to say to you.
But you don't say it.
Gwendolyn? Will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. Oh, how long you've been about it. I'm afraid you have had very little experience in how to propose.
Well, my own one. I've never loved anyone in the world but you.
Yes, but but men often propose for practice. I know my brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. Oh, what wonderfully blue eyes you have, Ernest. They are quite blue. Oh, I hope you will always look to me just like that, especially when there are other people present.
Mr. Worthing, rise, sir, from this semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous.
Oh, Mama! I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing has not quite finished yet.
Finished? What? May I ask?
I'm engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mama.
Pardon me, you are not engaged to anyone. When you do become engaged to someone, I or your father, should his health permit him, will inform you of the fact. An engagement should come on a young girl as a surprise, pleasant or unpleasant as the case may be. It is hardly a matter that she should be allowed to arrange for herself. Now, Mr. Worthing, I have a few questions to put to you. While I am making this inquiry, you, Gwendolyn, will wait for me below in the carriage.
Mama!
In the carriage, Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn, the carriage.
Certainly, Mama.
Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer standing.
I feel bound to tell you that you are not down on my list of eligible young men. Indeed, I have the same list as the dear Duchess of Bolton has. We work together, in fact. However, I'm quite ready to enter your name, should your answers be what a really affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Well, yes, I must admit I smoke.
I'm glad to hear it. A man should always have an occupation of some kind. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. How old are you?
29.
A very good age to be married at. I've always been of the opinion that a man who wishes to get married should know either everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I'm pleased to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate, exotic fruit. Touch it and the bloom is gone. The whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England, at any rate, education produces no effect whatsoever. If it did, it would prove serious danger to the upper classes and probably lead to acts of violence in Grosvenor Square. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or in investments?
In investments, chiefly.
That is satisfactory. What between the duties expected of one during one's lifetime and the duties exacted from one after one's death, land has ceased to be either a profit or a pleasure. It gives one position and prevents one from keeping it up. That's all that can be said about land.
Oh, I have a country house with some land, of course, attached to it, about 1,500 acres. But I don't depend on it for any of my real income. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, the poachers are the only people who make anything out of it.
Country house? How many bedrooms? Well, that point can be cleared up afterwards. You have a townhouse, I hope. A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature like Gwendolyn could hardly be expected to reside in the country.
Well, I do have a house in Belgrave Square, but it is let by the year to Lady Bloxham. I can, however, get it at whenever I please, at 6 months' notice.
Lady Bloxham, I don't know her.
Oh, she goes about very little nowadays. She is a lady considerably advanced in years.
Nowadays, that is no guarantee of respectability of character. What number in Belgrave Square?
149.
The unfashionable side. I thought there was something. However, that could be easily altered.
Do you mean the fashion or the side?
Both, if necessary, I presume. What are your politics?
Well, I am afraid I really have none. I am a liberal unionist.
They count as Tories. They dine with us, or come in the evening at any rate. Now to minor matters. Are your parents living?
I have lost both my parents, Lady Bracknell.
To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Who was your father? He was evidently a man of some wealth. Was he born in what the radical papers call the purple of commerce, or did he rise from the ranks of the aristocracy?
I'm afraid I really don't know. The truth is, Lady Bracknell, I have told you that I have lost my parents. It would be nearer to the truth to say that my parents seem to have lost me. I don't really know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
Yes. The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, an old gentleman of a very charitable and kindly disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing because he had a first-class ticket to Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It is a seaside resort.
And where did the charitable gentleman who happened to have a first-class ticket for this seaside resort find you?
In a handbag.
A handbag?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I was in a handbag. A somewhat large black leather handbag with handles to it. An ordinary handbag, in fact.
In what locality did this Mr. James or Thomas Cardew come across this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given to him in mistake for his own.
The cloakroom at Victoria Station?
Yes, the Brighton line.
The line is immaterial! Mr. Worthing, I must confess I feel somewhat bewildered by what you have just told me. To be born, or at any rate, bred in a handbag, whether it had handles or not, seems to me to display a contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life that reminds one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution, and I presume you know what that unfortunate movement led to. As for the particular locality in which the handbag was found, a cloakroom at a railway station might serve to conceal a social indiscretion, has probably indeed been used for that purpose before now, but it could hardly be regarded as an assured basis for a recognised position in good society.
May I ask you then what you would advise me to do? I need hardly tell you that I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Worthing, to try and acquire some relations as soon as possible, and to make a definite effort to produce, at any rate, one pair of divided sex before the season is quite over.
I'm not sure how I could possibly be able to do that. I can produce the handbag at any moment. It's in my cloakroom at home. And I really think that should be able to satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me, sir? What has it to do with me? You can hardly expect that I or Lord Bracknell would dream of allowing our only daughter, a girl brought up with the utmost care, to marry into a cloakroom and form an alliance with a parcel. Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning. Oh, for heaven's sake, Algy, don't play that ghastly tune in here.
Did you go all right, old boy? You don't mean to say Gwendolyn refused you? I know it is a way she has. She is always refusing people. I think it is most ill-natured of her.
Oh, Gwendolyn is as right as a trivet. As far as she is concerned, we are to be engaged. Her mother is perfectly unbearable. Never met such a corking. I'm not quite sure what a corking looks like, but I am quite sure that Lady Bracknell is one. At any rate, she is a monster without being a myth, which is rather unfair to... I beg your pardon, Algy. I suppose I shouldn't talk of your aunt in that way before you.
My dear boy, I love hearing my relations abused. It is the only thing that makes me put up with them at all. Relations are simply a tedious pack of people who haven't the smallest idea of how to live, nor the smallest instinct of when to die.
Oh, that is nonsense.
It isn't.
Well, I won't argue about the matter. You always want to argue things.
That is exactly what things were originally made for.
Upon my word, if I thought that, I would shoot myself. You don't suppose that Gwendolyn has any chance of becoming like her mother in about 150 years, do you, Algy?
All women become like their mothers. That is their tragedy. No man does, that's his.
Is that clever?
It is perfectly phrased. As true as any observation in good society should be.
Oh, I am sick to death of clever people. Everyone is clever nowadays. You can't go anywhere without meeting clever people. It is an absolute public nuisance. I wish to goodness that we had a few fools left.
We have.
I would extremely like to meet them. What do they talk about?
The fools. Oh, about the clever people, of course.
What fools?
By the way, tell Gwendolyn the truth about your being Earnest in town and Jack in the country.
Oh, the truth isn't quite the sort of thing one tells to a nice, sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas you have about the way to behave to a woman.
The only way to behave to a woman is to make love to her if she is pretty, or to someone else if she is plain.
Oh, that is nonsense!
What about your brother? What about the profligate Earnest?
Oh, by the week I shall have got rid of him. I'll say he died in Paris of apoplexy. Many people die of apoplexy quite suddenly, don't they?
Yes, but it's hereditary, my dear fellow. It's the sort of thing that runs in families. You would much better say a severe chill.
You're sure severe chill isn't hereditary or anything of the kind?
Of course it isn't.
Well, then that settles it. My brother Ernest carried off in Paris by a severe chill. That's what gets rid of him.
But I thought you said that little Miss Cardew was a little too much interested in your poor brother Ernest. Won't she feel his loss a good deal?
Oh, that's quite all right. Cecily is not a silly, romantic girl. She has a capital appetite, goes long walks, and never bothers to read up on any of her studies.
I would rather like to see Cecily.
I will take very good care that you never do. She is excessively pretty, and she is only just 18.
Did you tell Gwendolyn yet that you have an excessively pretty ward who is only just 18?
Oh, one doesn't blurt these things out. Gwendolyn and Cecily are perfectly poised to become great friends. I'll bet you anything that you like, that within half an hour of knowing each other, they will be calling each other sister.
Women only call each other that when they've said a lot of other things first. Now, my dear boy, if we want to get a good table at Willis's, we really must go and dress. Do you know it is nearly 7?
Oh, it is always nearly 7.
Well, I'm hungry.
I never knew a time when you weren't.
What shall we do after dinner? Go to the theatre?
Oh, no, I loathe listening.
Well, let us go to the club.
Oh, no, I hate talking.
Well, we might trot round to the Empire at 10.
No, I can't stand looking at things. It's so silly.
Well, what shall we do?
Nothing.
It's awful hard work doing nothing. Though I don't mind hard work when there is no definite object of any kind.
Ms. Fairfax.
Gwendolyn, upon my word.
Algy, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
Really, Gwendolyn, I don't think I can allow this at all.
Oh, Algy, you always adopt a strictly immoral attitude towards life. You are not quite old enough to do that.
My own one.
Ernest, we may never be married. From the expression on Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. Few parents nowadays pay any regard to what their children say to them. The old-fashioned respect for the young is fast dying out. But although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and though I may marry someone else, and marry often, nothing that she can possibly do can alter my eternal devotion to you.
Oh, Gwendolyn, darling.
The story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mamma with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my nature. Your Christian name holds an irresistible fascination. The simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible to me. Oh, the address in the town, the Albany, I have. What is your address in the country?
Oh, the Manor House, Walton, Hertfordshire.
There is a good postal service, I suppose. It may be necessary to do something desperate. That would, of course, require serious consideration. I will communicate with you daily.
My own one.
How long do you remain in town?
Till Monday.
Good. Algy, you may turn around now.
Thank you, I've turned round already.
You may also ring the bell.
Oh, you will let me see you to your carriage, darling.
Certainly.
I will see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
Bills. Cup of tea, Lane.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, Lane, I'm going bunburying.
Yes, sir.
I shall probably not be back till Monday. You can put up my dress clothes, my smoking jacket, and all the Bunbury suits.
Yes, sir.
I hope tomorrow will be a wonderful day, Lane.
It never is, sir.
Lane, you are a perfect pessimist.
I do my best to give satisfaction.
Ah, there's a sensible, intellectual girl. Ah, the only girl I ever cared for in my life. What on earth are you so amused at?
Oh, just a little anxious about poor Bunbury, that is all.
If you don't take care, your friend Bunbury is going to get you into a serious scrape someday.
I love scrapes. They're the only things that are never serious.
And that is nonsense. You never talk anything but nonsense.
Nobody ever does.
a utilitarian occupation, as the watering of flowers is rather Moulton's duty than yours, especially at a moment when such intellectual pleasures await you. Your German grammar is on the table. Pray open it at page 15. We will repeat yesterday's lesson.
But I do not like German. It is not at all a becoming language. I know perfectly well that I look quite plain after my German lesson.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is that you should improve yourself in every way. He laid particular stress on your German as he was leaving for town yesterday. Indeed, he always lays stress on your German as he is leaving for town.
Dear Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes he is so serious that I think he cannot be quite well.
Your guardian enjoys the best of health, and his gravity of demeanor is especially to be commended in one so comparatively young as he is. I know no one with a higher sense of duty or responsibility.
Perhaps that is why he often looks a little bored when we three are together.
Cecily, I am surprised at you. Mr. Worthing has many troubles in his life. An amendment and triviality would be out of place in his conversation, and you must not forget his constant anxiety about that unfortunate young man, his brother.
I wish Uncle Jack would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here sometimes. I think we might have a good influence over him, Miss Prism. I know you certainly would. You know German and geology and things of that kind influence a man very much.
I'm not sure that even I can produce any effect on such a character who, according to his own brother's admission, is irretrievably weak and vacillating. Indeed, I am not sure I would desire to reclaim him. I am not in favour of this modern mania for turning bad people into good people at a moment's notice. As a man sows, so let him reap. Oh, Cecily, you must put away your diary. I really don't see why you should keep a diary at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is the diary that we all carry about with us.
Yes, but it usually chronicles the things that have never happened and couldn't possibly have happened. I believe that memory is responsible for nearly all the 3-volume novels that Moody sends us.
Do not speak slightingly of the 3-volume novel, Cecily. I wrote one myself in earlier years.
Did you really, Miss Prism? Oh, how wonderfully clever you are. I hope it did not end happily. I do not like novels that end happily. They depress me so much.
The good ended happily, and the bad ended unhappily. That is what fiction means.
I suppose so. But it seems very unfair. Was it not ever published?
Oh, alas, no. The manuscript, unfortunately, was abandoned.
Abandoned?
I use the word in the sense of lost or mislaid. To your work, child, these speculations are profitless.
Oh, but I see dear Dr. Chasuble coming up through the garden.
Oh, Dr. Chasuble, this is indeed a pleasure.
And how are we this morning? Miss Prism, you are, I trust, well.
Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I think it would do her so much good to have a short stroll with you in the park, Dr. Chasuble.
Cecily, I have not mentioned anything about the headache.
Oh no, dear Miss Prism, I know that, but I felt instinctively that you had a headache. Indeed, I was thinking about that and not about my German lesson when the rector came in.
I hope, Cecily, that you are not inattentive.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
That's strange. Were I Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. I spoke metaphorically. My metaphor was drawn from bees.
Mr. Worthing, I suppose, has not returned from town yet.
Oh, we do not expect him till Monday afternoon.
Ah, yes. He likes to spend his Sunday in London. He is not one who his sole purpose is enjoyment, as by all accounts that unfortunate young man his brother seems to be. But I will not disturb Egeria and her pupil any longer.
Egeria? My name is Letitia, Doctor.
A classical allusion, merely, drawn from the pagan authors. I shall see you both, no doubt, at evensong.
I think, dear Doctor, I will have a stroll with you. I find I have a headache after all. And a walk might do it good.
With pleasure, Miss Prism, with pleasure. We may go as far as the schools and back.
Oh, that would be delightful. Oh, Cecily! In my absence, you will read your political economy. The chapter on the fall of the rupee you may omit. It is somewhat really sensational. Even these metallic problems have their melodramatic sides.
Horrid political economy. Horrid geography. Ah. Horrid German.
Mr. Earnest Worthing has just arrived from the station. He has brought his luggage with him.
Earnest Worthing before the Albany West. Uncle Jack's brother. Did you tell him Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, miss. He seemed very much disappointed. I told him that you and Miss Prism were in the Guardian. He expressed a desire to speak with you privately.
Ask him to come out here. I suppose you had better talk to the housekeeper about a room for him.
Yes, miss.
I have never met any really wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I'm so afraid he will look just like everyone else. He does.
You're my little cousin Cecily, I'm sure.
You are under some strange mistake. I'm not little. In fact, I believe I'm more than unusually tall for my age. But I am your cousin Cecily, and you, I see from your card, are Uncle Jack's brother, my cousin Ernest, my wicked cousin Ernest.
Oh, I'm not really wicked at all, cousin Cecily. You mustn't think that I'm wicked.
Well, if you're not, then you have certainly been deceiving us all in a very inexcusable manner. I hope you have not been leading a double life, pretending to be wicked but being really good all the time. That would be hypocrisy.
Oh, of course I have been rather reckless.
I'm glad to hear it.
In fact, now you mention the subject, I have been very bad in my own small way.
Well, I don't think you should be so proud of that, though I'm sure it must have been very pleasant.
It's much pleasanter being here with you.
I can't understand how you're here at all. Uncle Jack won't be back till Monday afternoon.
Yes, it's a great disappointment. I'm obliged to go up by the first train on Monday morning. I have a business appointment that I'm anxious to miss.
Couldn't you miss it anywhere but in London?
No, the appointment is in London.
Oh. Well, I of course know how important it is not to keep a business engagement if one wants to retain any sense of the beauty of life, but I still think you had better wait till Uncle Jack arrives. I know he wants to talk to you about your emigrating.
That's my what?
You're emigrating? He has gone up to buy your outfit.
I certainly wouldn't let Jack buy my outfit. He has no taste in neckties at all.
I don't think you will require neckties. Uncle Jack is sending you to Australia.
Australia? I'd sooner die.
Well, he said at dinner on Wednesday night that you would have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
Oh! Well, the accounts I have received of Australia and the next world are not particularly encouraging. This world is good enough for me, cousin Cecily.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
I'm afraid I'm not that. That is why I want you to reform me. You might make that your mission if you don't mind, cousin Cecily.
I'm afraid I've no time this afternoon.
Well, might you mind I reform myself this afternoon?
It is very quixotic of you, but I think you should try.
I will. I feel better already.
You're looking a little worse.
That's because I'm hungry.
Oh, how thoughtless of me. I should have remembered that when one is going to lead an entirely new life, one requires regular and wholesome meals. Won't you come in?
Thank you. Might I have a buttonhole first? I never have an appetite without a buttonhole first.
A Marshall Niel?
No, I'd sooner have a pink rose.
Why?
Because you are like a pink rose, cousin Cecily.
I don't think it can be right for you to talk to me like that. Miss Prism never says such things.
And Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady. You are the prettiest girl I ever saw.
Miss Prism says all good looks are a snare.
They are a snare that every sensible man would like to be caught in.
I don't think I would care to catch a sensible man. I shouldn't know what to talk to him about.
You are too much alone, dear Dr. Chasuble. You should get married. A misanthrope I can understand, but a womanthrope, never.
Believe me, I do not deserve so neologistic a phrase. The precept as well as the practice of the primitive church was strictly against matrimony.
That is obviously the reason why the primitive church has not lasted up to the present day. And you do not seem to realize, dear doctor, that by persistently remaining single, a man converts himself into a permanent public temptation. Men should be more careful. This very celibacy leads weaker vessels astray.
But is a man not equally attractive when married?
No married man is ever attractive except to his wife.
And often I'm told, not even to her.
Well, that depends on the intellectual sympathies of the woman. Maturity can be depended on. Ripeness can be trusted. Young women are green. I spoke horticulturally. My metaphor was drawn from fruits. But where's Cecily?
Perhaps she followed us to the schools.
Mr. Worthing.
Mr. Worthing?
It's indeed a surprise. We did not look for you till Monday afternoon.
I have returned sooner than I expected. Dr. Chasuble, I hope you are well.
Mr. Worthing, I hope this garb of woe does not betoken some terrible calamity.
My brother.
A shameful debts and extravagance.
Still leading his life of pleasure.
Dead!
Your brother, Earnest? Dead?
Quite dead!
What a lesson for him. I trust you will profit by it.
Mr. Worthing, you have my sincerest condolences. You have at least the consolation of knowing that you are always the most generous and forgiving of brothers.
Oh, poor Ernest. He had his faults, but it is a sad, sad blow.
Very sad indeed. Were you with him at the end?
No. He died abroad. In Paris, in fact. I had a telegram message to me last night from the manager of the Grand Hotel.
Was the cause of death mentioned?
A severe chill, it seems.
Well, as a man sows, so let him reap.
Charity, my dear Miss Prism, charity. None of us are perfect. I myself am particularly susceptible to drafts. Will the interment take place here?
No. He seems to have expressed a desire to be married in Paris.
In Paris? A fear that hardly points to any very serious state of mind at the last. You would, no doubt, wish me to make some slight allusion to this terrible personal fiction on Sunday. My sermon on the meaning of the manna in the wilderness can be adapted to almost any occasion, joyful or, as in the present case, distressing. I have preached it at harvest celebrations, christenings, confirmation, days of humiliations, and festal days. The last time I did it was in the cathedral as a charity sermon on the behalf of the Society for the Prevention of Discontent among the upper orders. The bishop, who was present, was very much struck by some of the analogies I drew.
That reminds me, you mentioned christenings, I think, Dr. Chasuble. You know how to christen, all right, I presume? I mean, of course, you are continually christening, aren't you?
It is, I regret to say, one of the rector's most constant duties in this parish. I've often spoken to the poorer classes on the subject, but they do not seem to know what thrift is.
But is there any particular infant you are interested in christening, Mr. Worthing? Your brother was, I believe, unmarried, was he not?
Oh, yes, of course.
People who live entirely for pleasure usually are.
But it is not for any child, dear doctor. No, I'm particularly fond of children myself. No, the fact is, I wish to be christened myself. This afternoon, if you've nothing better to do.
But surely, Mr. Worthing, you have been christened already.
I don't remember anything of the kind.
But have you any grave doubts on the subject?
I certainly intend to have. Of course, I don't know if the thing would bother you in any way, or if you think I'm a little too old now.
Not at all. The sprinkling and indeed immersion of adults is a perfectly canonical practice.
Immersion.
Oh, you need have no apprehensions. A sprinkling is all that is necessary, or indeed I think advisable. Our weather is so changeable. At what time would you like to be christened at?
I might trot round about 5 if that would suit you.
Perfectly, perfectly. I have 2 similar ceremonies to perform at around the same time. A case of twins that occurred on one of the outer reaches of your estate, Mr. Worthing. Poor Jenkins, the carter, a most hard-working man.
Oh, I don't see much fun in being christened alongside other babies. That would be childish. Would 5:30 do?
Admirably, admirably. And now, Mr. Worthing, I will not intrude upon a house of sorrow any longer. I merely ask that you be not too much bowed down by grief. What appear to be to us bitter trials are often blessings in disguise.
This seems to me a blessing of an extremely obvious kind.
Uncle Jack! Oh, I'm pleased to see you back. But what horrid clothes you've got on. Do go and change them.
Cicely!
My child.
What is the matter, Uncle Jack? Do look happy. You look as if you've had a toothache, and I've got such a surprise for you. Who do you think is in the dining room? Your brother.
Who?
Your brother Ernest. He arrived about half an hour ago.
Oh, that's nonsense. I haven't got a brother.
Oh, don't say that. However badly he may have behaved to you in the past, he is still your brother. You couldn't be so heartless as to disown him. I'll ask him to come out here and you will shake hands with him, won't you, Uncle Jack?
These are joyful tidings.
After we'd all been resigned to his losses, sudden return seems to me particularly distressing.
My brother is in the dining room. I don't know what it all means. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Oh, good heavens!
John! I have come down from town to tell you that I am terribly sorry for all the trouble that I have given you, and that I intend to lead a better life in the future.
Uncle Jack, you are not going to refuse your own brother's hand.
Oh, nothing would induce me to take his hand. I think his coming down here is disgraceful. He knows perfectly well why.
Uncle Jack, do be nice. There are some good in everyone. Ernest has just been telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, whom he goes to visit so often. And surely there must be much good in one who is kind to an invalid and leaves the pleasures of London to sit by a bed of pain.
Oh, he's told you about Bunbury, has he?
Yes, he has told me all about poor Mr. Bunbury and his terrible state of health.
Oh, Bunbury. Well, I won't have him talk to you about Bunbury or about anything else. It's enough to drive one perfectly frantic.
Of course, I admit all the faults are on my side, but I must say I find Brother John's coldness to me peculiarly painful. I was expecting a more enthusiastic welcome, especially considering it is the first time that I am here.
Uncle Jack, if you do not shake hands with Ernest, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me.
Never, never, never.
Well, this is the last time that I shall ever do it.
It is so pleasant, is it not, to see so perfect a reconciliation? I think we shall leave the 2 brothers together.
Cicely, you will come with us.
Oh, certainly, Miss Prism. My little task of reconciliation is over.
You have done a good deed today, my child.
We must not be premature in our judgments.
I feel very happy.
Oh, you young scoundrel out! You must get out of this place as soon as possible. I don't allow any Bunburying here!
I have placed Mr. Earnest's things into the room next to yours, sir. I trust that will be all right.
What?
Mr. Earnest's luggage, sir. I have unpacked it and placed it into the room next to your own.
His luggage.
Yes, sir. 3 portmanteaus, a dressing case, 2 hat boxes, and a large luncheon basket.
I'm afraid I can't stay more than a week this time.
Merriman, order the dog cart at once. Mr. Earnest has been suddenly called back to town.
Yes, sir.
What a fearful liar you are, Jack. I haven't been called back to town at all.
Yes, you have.
I haven't heard anyone call me.
Your duty as a gentleman calls you back.
My duty as a gentleman has never interfered with my pleasures in the smallest degree.
Oh, I can definitely understand that.
Well, Cecily is a darling.
You are not to talk of Miss Cardew like that. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like your clothes. You look utterly ridiculous. Why don't you go up and change? It is perfectly childish to be in deep mourning for a man who is actually staying with you for a whole week in your house as a guest. I call it grotesque.
You are certainly not staying with me for a whole week as a guest or anything else. You've got to leave by the 4-5 train.
I certainly will not leave you so long as you are in mourning. You would be most unkind if I did. Why, if I were in mourning, you would stay by my side. I would think it most unfriendly if you didn't.
Well, will you go if I change my clothes?
Yes, but be quick about it. I've never seen someone take so long with such little result.
Well, at any rate, that's better than being always overdressed as you are.
If I am ever a little overdressed, I always make up for it by being immensely overeducated.
No, your vanity is ridiculous. Your conduct an outrage, and your presence in my garden utterly absurd. However, you've got to catch the 4-5 train, and I do hope that you will have a pleasant journey back to town. This bunburying, as you call it, has not been a great success for you.
I think it has been a great success. I am in love with Cecily, and that is everything. But I must see her before I go and make arrangements for another Bunbury. Ah, there she is.
Oh, I merely came back to water the roses. I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
He's gone to order the dog cart for me.
Oh, is he going to take you for a nice drive?
He's going to send me away.
Oh, then have we got to part?
I'm afraid so. It is a very painful parting.
Well, it is always very painful to part from people whom one is known for a very brief space of time. The absence of old friends one can endure with equanimity, but even a momentary separation from anyone to whom one has just been introduced is almost unbearable.
Thank you.
The dog cart is at the door, sir.
It can wait, Merriman, for 5 minutes.
Yes, miss.
Cecily, I hope you don't mind me stating quite openly and frankly that you are to me to be in every way the visible personification of absolute perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Ernest. If you would allow me, I will copy your remarks into my diary.
Do you really keep a diary? I would give anything to read it, may I?
Oh, no. It is simply a very young girl's record of her own thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. When it appears in volume form, I hope you'll order a copy. But pray, Ernest, don't stop. I delight in taking down from dictation. I have reached absolute perfection. You may go on. I'm quite ready for more. Do not cough, Ernest. When one is dictating, one should speak fluently and not cough. Besides, I don't know how to spell a cough.
Cecily, ever since I first looked upon your beautiful and incomparable beauty, I have dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
I don't think you should say that you love me wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't make much sense, does it?
Cecily.
The dog cart is waiting, sir.
They'll come round next week at the same hour.
Yes, sir.
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed if he knew you were staying on until next week at the same hour.
I don't care about Jack. I don't care for anyone in this world but you. I love you, Cecily. You will marry me, won't you?
You silly boy. Of course, why, we've been engaged for the last 3 months.
The last 3 months?
Yes, it'll be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
And when do we become engaged?
Well, ever since Uncle Jack first confessed to us that he had a younger brother who was very wicked and bad, you, of course, have formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and Miss Prism. And of course, a man who is much talked about is always very attractive. One feels there must be something in him after all. I dare say it was foolish of me, but I fell in love with you, Ernest.
Darling. But when was our engagement actually settled?
On the 14th of February last. Worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I determined to end the matter in one way or another, and after a long struggle with myself, I accepted you under this dear old tree here. The next day, I put the slipper in nothing, and here is the bangle with the true lover's knot I promised you always to wear.
I got you this. It's very pretty.
Yes, you have wonderfully good taste, Ernest. It's the excuse I've always given you for leading such a bad life. And here is the box in which I keep all of your dear letters.
Letters? Darling, Cecily, I haven't written you any letters.
You need hardly remind me of that. I remember only too well that I was forced to write your letters for you. And always 3 times a week and sometimes oftener.
read them, Cecily?
I couldn't possibly. They would make you far too conceited. The three you wrote to me after I broke the engagement off were so beautiful and so badly spelled that even now I can hardly read them without crying a little.
But was our engagement ever broken off?
Of course it was. On the 22nd of last March. You can see the entry if you like. Today I broke off my engagement with Earnest. I feel it is better to do so. The weather still continues charming.
Why on earth did you break it off? What had I done? I had done nothing, Cecily. I must say I'm quite hurt you broke off the engagement, particularly when the weather was so charming.
Well, it was a serious engagement if it hadn't been broken off at least once. Besides, I forgave you before the week was out.
Oh, but you are a perfect angel, Cecily.
You dear romantic boy! Your hair curls naturally, does it?
Yes, with a little help from others.
I'm so glad.
You'll never break off our engagement again, Cecily?
Oh, I don't think I could break it off now that I've actually met you. Besides, there is still the question of your name.
Yes, of course.
I mustn't laugh at me, darling, but it has always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone whose name was Earnest. There is something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. I pity any poor married woman whose husband isn't called Earnest.
But my child, are you saying you could not love me if I had some other name?
But what name?
Oh, any name you like. Algernon, for instance.
Oh, I do not like the name of Algernon.
But my darling, pretty Cecily, I don't see why you could not love the name of Algernon. It is a very aristocratic name. Half of the chaps who get into the bankruptcy court are named Algernon. But honestly, Cecily, if my name was Algy, you could love me, right?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character, but I feel I would not be able to give you my undivided attention.
Cecily, your rector, I assume, is well versed in all the rites and ceremonials of the church?
Yes, Dr. Chasuble is a most learned man. He has never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
I must see him about a most important christening. I mean about a most important business.
Oh.
I shan't be gone longer than half an hour.
Well, considering that we have been engaged since February the 14th and that I've only met you today for the first time, it seems rather hard that you should leave me for so long a period as a half an hour. Couldn't you make it 20 minutes?
I'll be back in no time.
What an impetuous boy he is. I like his hair so much. I must record his proposal into my diary.
Miss Fairfax is here to see Mr. Worthing. On very important business, Miss Fairfax states.
Isn't Mr. Worthing in his library?
Mr. Worthing went into the direction of the rectory some time ago, miss.
Tell the lady to come out here. Mr. Worthing is sure to be back soon, and you can bring tea.
Yes, miss.
Miss Fairfax must be one of the many good elderly women who are associated with Uncle Jack and his philanthropic work in London. I don't quite like women who are interested in philanthropic work. I think it is so very forward of them.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray let me introduce myself to you. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew! What a very sweet name. Something tells me we are going to be great friends. I like you already more than I can say. My first impressions of people are never wrong.
But how nice of you to like me so much after we have known each other such a comparatively short time. Pray sit down.
I may call you Cecily, may I not?
With pleasure.
And you will always call me Gwendolen, won't you?
If you wish.
Then that is all quite settled, is it not?
I hope so.
Perhaps this might be a favorable opportunity for my mentioning who I am. My Lord Bracknell. You've never heard of Papa, I suppose?
I don't think so.
Outside of the family circle, Papa, I am glad to say, is entirely unknown. I think that is quite as it should be. The home seems to me to be the proper sphere for the man. And certainly once a man starts to neglect his domestic duties, he becomes painfully effeminate, don't you think so? And I don't like that. It makes men so very attractive. Cecily, Mamma, whose views on education are remarkably strict, has brought me up to be extremely short-sighted. It is part of the system, so do you mind my looking at you through my glasses?
Oh, not at all, Gwendolyn. I'm very fond of being looked at.
You are here on a short visit, I suppose.
Oh, no. I live here.
Really? Your mother, no doubt, or some female relative of advanced years resides here also?
Oh, no. I have no mother, nor, in fact, any relations.
Indeed.
My dear guardian, with the assistance of Miss Prism, has the arduous task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
Yes, I am Mr. Worthing's ward.
Oh! It is strange. He never mentioned to me he had a ward. How very secretive of him. He grows more interesting hourly. I cannot say, however, that the news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. I am very fond of you, Cecily. I've liked you ever since the moment I saw you. However, I am bound to state that now that I know that you are Mr. Worthing's ward, I cannot help expressing a wish that you were just a little older than you seem to be and not quite so very alluring in appearance. In fact, if I may speak candidly...
Pray do! I think that whenever one has anything unpleasant to say, one must always be quite candid.
Well, to speak with perfect candor, Cecily, I wish that you were fully 42 and more than usually plain for your age. Ernest has a strong, upright nature. He is the very soul of truth and honor. Disloyalty would be as impossible to him as deception. However, even men of the noblest possible moral characters are susceptible to the influences of physical charms of others. Modern, no less than ancient history, supplies us with many most painful examples of what I refer to. If it were not so, indeed, history would be quite unreadable.
I beg your pardon, Gwendolyn, but did you say Ernest?
Yes.
But it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is my guardian. It is his brother, his elder brother.
Ernest never mentioned to me that he had a brother.
Well, I'm sorry to say that they have not been on good terms for a very long time.
Oh, that counts for it! Oh, well, now that I think of it, Matt never mentioned their brothers. No, the subject seems distasteful to them. Cecily, you've lifted a load from my mind. I was growing almost anxious. It would be terrible if any cloud had come over a friendship such as ours, would it not? Now you are quite sure that it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is your guardian?
Quite sure. In fact, I'm going to be his.
I beg your pardon?
There is no reason for me to make a secret of it to you. Our little county newspaper is sure to chronicle the fact next week. Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
Oh, my darling Cecily, there seems to be some slight error, you see. Mr. Ernest Worthing is engaged to me. The announcement will appear no later than Saturday.
I'm afraid you must be under some misconception, for Ernest proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
That is certainly curious, for he asked me to be his wife yesterday afternoon at 5:30. If you'd care to verify the incident, pray do so. I never travel without my diary. One must always have something sensational to read in the train. I am so sorry, dear Cecily, if the news has caused you any disappointment. But I am afraid I have the prior claim.
Well, it would distress me more than I can tell you. Dear Gwendolyn, if it caused you any mental or physical anguish, but I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you,
a moral duty to speak one's mind. It becomes a pleasure.
Oh, did you suggest, Miss Fairfax, that I entrapped Ernest into an engagement? How dare you? This is no time for wearing the shallow mask of manners. When I see a spade, I call it a spade.
I'm glad to say that I've never seen a spade. It is obvious our social spheres are widely different.
Shall I put the tea out as usual?
Yes, as usual.
Are there many interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Yes, a great many. From the top of one of the hills quite close, one can see 5 counties.
5 counties? I don't think I should like that. I hate crowds.
I suppose that's why you live in town?
Quite a well-kept garden you have, Miss Cardew.
I'm so glad you like it, Miss Fairfax.
I had no idea there were any flowers in the country.
Flowers are as common here, Miss Fairfax, as people are in London.
I can't understand how anybody manages to live in the country, if anybody who is anybody does. The country always bores me to death.
Oh, I suppose that's what the newspapers call agricultural depression, is it not? I believe that the aristocracy are suffering very much from it just at present. It is almost an epidemic amongst them, I've been told. May I offer you some tea, Miss Fairfax?
Thank you. Detestable girl, but I require tea.
Sugar?
No, thank you. Sugar is not fashionable anymore.
Cake or bread and butter?
Bread and butter, please. Cake is rarely seen at the best houses nowadays.
And that to Miss Fairfax.
You have filled my tea with lumps of sugar. And though I most distinctly asked for bread and butter, you have given me cake. I am known for the gentleness of my disposition and the extraordinary sweetness of my nature. But I warn you, Miss Cardew, you may go too far.
To save my poor, innocent, trusting boy from the machinations of any other girl, there are no lengths to which I will not go.
From the moment I saw you, I distrusted you. I felt that you were false and deceitful. I am never deceived in such matters. My first impressions of people are invariably right.
But it seems to me, Miss Fairfax, that I am trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you have many other calls of a similar character to make in the neighborhood.
Ernest! Oh, my own Ernest!
Darling! Oh!
A moment. Are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
To little Cecily? Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little head?
Thank you, you may.
I knew there must have been some misunderstanding, for the gentleman whose arm is at present round your waist is my guardian, Mr. John Worthing.
I beg your pardon?
This is Uncle Jack.
Jack! Oh!
Oh, here is Ernest.
My own love.
A moment, Ernest. Are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
What young lady? Good heavens, Gwendolyn!
Yes, to good heavens, to Gwendolyn.
Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little head?
Thank you. You may.
I felt there was some slight error. You see, the man who is now embracing you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrief.
Oh, Algernon Moncrief! Are you called Algernon?
I cannot deny it.
I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked. However, my name is most certainly John. It's been John for years.
A gross deception has been practiced on the poor. My poor wounded Cecily. Oh, my sweet wronged Gwendolyn. Sister, will you not? One question I would like to be allowed to ask my guardian.
An admirable idea.
Mr. Worthing.
There's just one question that I may be permitted to put to you. Where is your brother Ernest? We are both engaged to your brother Earnest, so it is of some importance to us to know where your brother is at present.
Gwendolyn? Cecily? It is rather painful for me to be forced to speak the truth. It is the first time in my life that I have ever been reduced to such a position. And I must say that I really am inexperienced in doing anything of the kind. But I must say that, quite frankly, that I have no brother, Ernest. I have no brother at all. I have never had a brother in my life, and I have not the slightest intention of ever having one in the future.
No brother at all?
None.
Had you never a brother of any kind?
Never. Not even of any kind.
Oh, my dear Cecily, I'm afraid it is quite clear that neither one of us is engaged to be married to anyone.
It is not a very pleasant position for a young girl to suddenly find herself in, is it?
Let us venture into the house. They will hardly come after us there.
No, men are so cowardly, aren't they?
This dreadful state of affairs are what you call Bunburying, I presume?
Yes, and a perfectly wonderful Bunbury it is. The most wonderful Bunbury I've ever had in my life.
Well, you have no right to Bunbury whatsoever here.
It is absurd. One has the right to Bunbury anywhere one chooses. Every serious Bunburyist knows that.
Serious Bunburyist? Oh, good
One
heavens!
must be serious about something if one is to have any amusement in life. I happen to be serious about Bunbury. What you're serious about, I haven't the remotest idea. About everything, I should fancy. You have such an absolutely trivial nature.
Well, the only small satisfaction that I have in the whole wretched business is that your friend Bunbury is quite exploded. You won't be able to run down to the country quite so often as you used to do, dear Algy, and a very good thing, too.
Your brother is a little off colour, isn't he, dear Jack? You won't be able to disappear to London quite so frequently as your wicked custom was, and that isn't all a bad thing either.
As for your conduct towards Miss Cardew, I must say that you're taking in a sweet, simple, innocent girl like that is inexcusable. To mention nothing of the fact that she is my ward.
I can see no possible defence at all for your deceiving a brilliant, clever, thoroughly experienced lady like Miss Fairfax, to say nothing of the fact that she is my cousin.
I wish to be engaged to Gwendolyn, that is all. I love her.
And I simply want to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
There is no chance of your ever marrying Miss Cardew.
I don't think there is any likelihood, Jack, of you and Miss Fairfax being united.
Well, that is no business of yours.
If it was my business, I wouldn't talk about it. It's very vulgar to talk about one's own business. Only people like stockbrokers do that, and even then, only at dinner parties.
How can you sit there calmly eating muffins when we are in this horrible trouble? I can't quite make out. You seem to me to be perfectly heartless.
Well, I can't eat muffins in an agitated manner. The butter could get in my cuffs. Yes, one must always eat muffins in a calm manner. It is the only way to eat them.
I say it's perfectly heartless you're eating muffins at all under the circumstances.
When I'm in trouble, eating is the only thing that consoles me. Indeed, when I am in great trouble, as anyone who knows me intimately will tell you, I refuse everything except food and drink. At the present time, I am eating muffins because I am unhappy. Besides, I am particularly fond of muffins.
Well, that is no reason for you to eat them in such a greedy way.
I wish you would have tea cake instead. I don't like tea
Oh,
cake.
good heavens. I suppose a man may eat his own muffins in his own garden.
Well, You just said it is perfectly harmless to eat muffins.
No, I said it was perfectly harmless for you, given the circumstances. That is an entirely different thing.
That may be, but the muffins are the same.
Auntie, I wish to goodness that you would go.
You can't possibly expect me to go without having some dinner. This is absurd. I never go without my dinner. The only people who do that are vegetarians and other people like that. Besides, I've already made arrangements with Dr. Chasuble to be christened at 5:45 under the name of Earnest.
My dear fellow, the sooner you give up that nonsense, the better. I made arrangements this morning with Dr. Chasuble to be christened myself at 5:30, and I naturally would take the name of Earnest. Gwendolyn would wish it. We can't both be named Earnest. It's absurd. But I have a perfect right to be christened if I like. There is no evidence whatsoever that I have ever been christened by anybody. I should think it extremely probable I never was, and so does Dr. Chasuble. It's entirely different in your case. You've been christened already.
Yes, but I have been christened for years.
Yes, but you have been christened. That's the important thing.
Quite so. Therefore, we know I have the constitution for it. If you're not quite sure about your ever having been christened, I must say I think it very dangerous you're venturing on it now. It could make you very unwell. You can hardly have forgotten that someone very closely connected to you was very nearly carried off this week in Paris by a severe chill.
Yes, and you yourself said that a severe chill is not hereditary.
Up until now, science is always making wonderful improvements on things.
That is nonsense. You are always talking nonsense.
Jack, you are at the muffins again. I wish you wouldn't. There are only 2 left. I told you I was particularly fond of muffins.
But I hate tea cake.
Then why do you allow tea cake to be offered up to your guests? The ideas you have of hospitality.
Oh, Algernon! I have told you to go. I don't want you here. Why don't you go?
I haven't very well finished my tea yet. There's still 1 muffin left.
They did not follow us at once into the house, as anyone else would have done, seems to me to show that they have some sense of shame left.
They have been eating muffins. That looks like repentance.
They don't seem to notice us at all. Couldn't you cough?
But I haven't got a cough.
Oh, they're looking at us! What effrontery!
Oh, they're approaching. That's very forward of them.
Let us preserve a dignified silence.
Certainly. It's the only thing to do now.
This dignified silence seems to produce an unpleasant effect.
A most distasteful one.
But we will not be the first to speak.
Certainly not.
Mr. Worthing, I have something very particular to ask you. Much depends on your reply.
Gwendolyn, your common sense is invaluable. Mr. Moncrief, kindly answer me the following question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
In order that I might have the opportunity of meeting you.
Well, that certainly seems a satisfactory explanation, does it not?
Yes, dear, if you can believe him.
I don't, but that does not affect the wonderful beauty of his answer.
True, in matters of grave importance, style, not sincerity, is the vital thing. Mr. Worthing, what explanation can you offer to me for pretending to have a brother? Was it in order that you might have an opportunity of seeing me as often as possible?
Can you doubt it, Miss Fairfax?
I have the gravest doubts upon the subject, but I intend to crush them. This is not a moment for German skepticism. Their explanations seem to be quite satisfactory, especially Mr. Worthing's. That seems to have the stamp of truth upon it.
I am more than content with what Mr. Moncrief said. His voice alone inspires one with absolute credulity.
Then you think we should forgive them?
Yes.
I mean, no. Oh, true. I had forgotten. There are principles at stake that one cannot surrender. But which one of us should tell them? The task was not a pleasant one.
Could we not both speak at the same time?
and I would consider it wrong. However, you will clearly understand that all communication between yourself and my daughter must cease immediately from this moment. On this point, as indeed on all points, I am firm.
I am engaged to Gwendolyn, Lady Bracknell.
You are nothing of the kind, sir. And now, as regards Algernon. Algernon?
Yes, Aunt Augusta?
May I ask if it is in this house that your invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, resides?
Oh, no, Bunbury is not here. Bunbury is somewhere else at present. In fact, Bunbury is dead.
Dead? When did Mr. Bunbury die? His death must have been extremely sudden.
No, I killed Bunbury this afternoon. I mean, Bunbury died this afternoon.
Did he die of?
I'm afraid he quite exploded.
Exploded? Was he the victim of revolutionary outrage? I was not aware that Mr. Bunbury was interested in social legislation. If so, he was well punished for his morbidity.
My dear Aunt Augusta, I mean Bunbury was found out. The doctors found out he could not live, that is what I mean. So Bunbury died.
Well, he seems to have had great confidence in the opinions of his physicians. I'm glad, however, that he made up his mind at the last to some definite course of action and acted under proper medical advice. And now that we have finally got rid of this Mr. Bunbury, may I ask, Mr. Worthing, who is that young person whose hand my nephew Algernon is now holding in what seems to me a peculiarly unnecessary manner?
That lady, Lady Bracknell, is Miss Cecily Cardew, my ward.
I am engaged to be married to Cecily, Aunt Augusta.
I beg your pardon?
Mr. Moncrief and I are engaged to be married, Lady Bracknell.
I do not know whether there is anything peculiarly exciting in the air of this particular part of Hertfordshire, but the number of engagements that go on seem to me particularly above the proper average that statistics have laid down for our guidance. I think some preliminary inquiry on my part would not be out of place. Mr. Worthing, is Miss Cardew at all connected with any of the larger railway stations in London? I mean, the entire information. Until yesterday, I had no idea that there were any families or persons whose origin was a terminus.
Miss Cardew is the granddaughter of the late Mr. Thomas Cardew of 149 Belgrave Square, Southwest, Gervais Park, Dorking, Surrey, and the Sporan, Fisher, N.B.
That is not unsatisfactory. 3 addresses always imply confidence, even in tradesmen, but what prove about their authenticity?
I have carefully preserved the court guides of the period. They are open to your inspection, Lady Bracknell.
I have known strange errors in that publication.
Well, the Cardew family solicitors are Messieurs Markby, Markby, and Markby.
Markby, a fellow of the very highest position in their profession. Indeed, I am told that one of the Mr. Markbys is occasionally to be seen at dinner parties. So far, I'm satisfied.
You are extremely kind of you, Lady Bracknell. I have also in my possession, you will be pleased to hear, documents of Miss Cardew's birth, baptism, whooping cough, confirmation, registration, vaccination, and the measles, both of the German and the English variety.
A life crowded with incident, I see. Though perhaps somewhat too exciting for a young girl. I'm not myself in favour of premature experiences. Gwendolyn, the time approaches for our departure. We've not a moment to lose. As a matter of form, Mr. Worthing, I'd better ask you if Miss Cardew has any little fortune.
About £130,000 in the funds. That is all. Goodbye, Lady Bracknell. So pleased to have seen you.
A moment, Mr. Worthing. £130,000 and in the funds? Miss Cardew seems to me a most attractive young lady now that I look at her. Few girls of the modern day have any really solid qualities, and of the qualities that last and improve with time. Come over here, dear. Pretty child, your dress is sadly simple and your dressing's almost as nature might have left it, but we can soon alter all that. A thoroughly experienced French maid produces really marvellous results in a very brief space of time. Indeed, I remember recommending one to a young lady Lansing. After 3 months, her own husband did not know her.
And after 6 months, nobody knew her.
Kindly turn around, sweet child. The side view is what I want. Yes, quite as I expected. There are distinct social possibilities in your profile. The 2 weak points in our age are its want of principle and its want of profile. The chin a little higher, dear. Style is largely dependent on the way the chin is worn. They want very high just at present. Algernon?
Yes, Aunt Augusta.
There are distinct social possibilities in Miss Cardew's profile.
Cecily is the dearest, prettiest, sweetest girl in the whole world, and I don't give 2 pence about social possibilities.
Never speak disrespectfully of society, Algernon. Only people who can't get into it do that. Dear child, I'm sure you know that Algernon has nothing but his debts to depend upon, but I am not in favour of mercenary marriages. When I married Lord Bracknell, I had no fortune of any kind, but I wouldn't dream of allowing that to stand in my way. Well, I suppose I must give my consent.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Cecily, you may kiss me.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell.
You may also address me as Aunt Augusta for the future.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
The marriage, I think, had better take place quite soon.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
I am not myself in favour of long engagements. I feel they give people the opportunity to find out each other's character before marriage, which I think is never advisable.
Pardon me for interrupting you, Lady Bracknell, but this engagement is entirely out of the question. You see, I am Miss Cardew's guardian, and she cannot marry without my consent until she legally comes of age. That consent I absolutely refuse to give.
Upon what grounds, may I ask? Algernon is an extremely, may I say almost an ostentatiously eligible young man. He has nothing but looks, everything. What more can one desire?
Oh, it pains me to have to speak frankly to you, Lady Bracknell, about your nephew, but the truth is that I do not at all approve of his moral character. I suspect him of being untruthful.
Untruthful? My nephew Algernon? Impossible. He is an Oxonian.
I fear there can be no possible doubt about the matter. This afternoon, during my temporary absence to London on an important question of romance, he obtained admission to my house by means of the false pretense of being my brother. Under an assumed name, he drank, I've just been told by my butler, an entire pint bottle of Perrier Jouet Brew 89, one I was specially reserving for myself. Content with his deception, he succeeded in the course of the afternoon of alienating the affections of my only ward. He subsequently stayed to tea and devoured every single muffin! And what makes his conduct all the more heartless is that he knew very well from the first that I have no brother, that I have never had a brother, and that I have not the slightest intention of ever having one in the future. I distinctly told him myself yesterday afternoon.
Mr. Worthing, after careful consideration, I have decided entirely to overlook my nephew's conduct. Do you?
Oh, how incredibly generous of you, Lady Bracknell. My position, however, is unalterable. I decline to give my consent.
Come here, sweet child. How old are you?
Well, I'm really only 18, but I always admit to 20 when I go to evening parties.
You are quite right in making some slight alteration. Indeed, no woman should ever be entirely accurate about her age. It looks so calculating. 18, but admitting to 20 at evening parties. Well, it won't be long before you are of age and freed from the restraints of tutelage. So your guardian's consent is, after all, a matter of little importance.
Oh, pray forgive me for interrupting you again, Lady Bracknell, but it is only fair to tell you that, according to her grandfather's will, Miss Cardew does not legally come of age till she is 35.
That does not seem to me a grave objection. 35 is a very attractive age. Indeed, London society is full of women of the very highest birth who have of their own free choice remained 35 for years. Lady Dumbledon is an instance in point. To my knowledge, she has been 35 ever since she arrived at the age of 40, which was many years ago now. I see no reason why our dear Cecily should not be even still more attractive at the age you mentioned than she is at present. There will be a large accumulation of property.
Algie, could you wait for me till I was 35?
Of course I could, Cecily. You know I could.
Yes, I felt instinctively. But I could not wait all that time. I hate waiting even 5 minutes for anybody. It always makes me rather cross. I know I'm not punctual myself, but I do enjoy punctuality in others. And waiting even to be married is quite out of the question.
What is to be done, Cecily?
I don't know, Mr. Moncrief.
Mr. Worthing, as Miss Cardew states positively that she cannot wait till she is 35. A remark which I'm about to say shows a somewhat impatient nature. I would beg of you to reconsider your decision.
But, my dear Lady Bracknell, the decision is entirely in your own hands. The moment you consent to my marriage with Gwendolen, I will allow your nephew to form an alliance with my ward.
I presume you know that what you propose is out of the question.
Then a passionate celibacy is all that any of us can look forward
ready for the christenings.
The christenings? Sir, is it not somewhat premature?
Both of these gentlemen have expressed a desire for immediate baptism.
Is that? The idea is grotesque. In a religious algebra, I forbid you to be baptized. I will not hear of such excesses. Lord Bracknell will be highly displeased if he learns that that was the way in which you wasted your time and money.
Am I to understand, then, there are to be no christenings at all this afternoon?
I don't think that, as things are currently, they would be of much practical use to us, Dr. Chasuble.
I am grieved to hear of such sentiments from you, Mr. Worthing. They savour of the heretical views of the Anabaptists, views which I have completely refuted in 4 of my unpublished sermons. However, since your current mood seems to be one peculiarly secular, I will return to the church. In fact, I have just been informed by the Wagner that Miss Prism has been waiting for me in the vestry for an hour and a half.
Miss Prism? Did I hear you mention a Miss Prism?
Yes, Lady Bracknell.
Pray allow me to detain you for a moment. This matter may be one of no small importance to Lord Bracknell and myself. Is this Miss Prism a female of repellent aspect remotely connected with education?
She is the most cultivated of ladies and the very picture of respectability.
It is obviously the same person. May I ask what position she holds in your household?
I am celibate, madam.
Miss Prism, Lady Bracknell, has been for the last 3 years Miss Cardew's esteemed governess and valued companion.
In spite of what I hear of her, I must see her at once. Let her be sent for.
Ah, she approaches. She is nigh.
I was told you expected me in the vestry, dear Canon. I've been waiting for you there for an hour and 3/4. No.
Prism! Come here, Prism. Prism? Where is that baby?
Oh!
28 years ago, Prism, you left Lord Bracknell's house, number 104 Upper Grosvenor Street, in charge of a perambulator that contained a baby of the male sex. You never returned. A few weeks later, through the elaborate investigations of the Metropolitan Police, the perambulator was found standing by itself in a remote corner of Bayswater. It contained the manuscript of a 3-volume novel of more than usually revolting sentimentality, but the baby was not there. Prism, where is that baby?
Lady Bracknell, I admit with shame that I do not know. I only wish I did. The plain facts of the case are these. On the morning of the day you mentioned, the day which is forever branded in my memory, I prepared as usual to take the baby out in its perambulator. I had also with me a somewhat old but spacious handbag in which I had intended to place the manuscript of a work of fiction that I had written during my few unoccupied hours. In a moment of mental abstraction for which I would never forgive myself, I deposited the manuscript in the bassinet and placed the baby into the handbag.
But where did you deposit that handbag?
Mr. Worthing, do not ask me.
Miss Prism, this is a matter of no small importance to me. I insist on knowing where you deposited the handbag that contains that infant.
I left it in the cloakroom of one of the larger railway stations in London.
What railway station?
Victoria. The Brighton line.
I must retire to my room for a moment. Gwendolyn, wait here for me.
If you are not too long, I will wait here for you all my life.
What do you think this means, Lady Bracknell?
I dare not even suspect, Dr. Chasuble. I need hardly tell you that in families of high position, strange coincidences are not supposed to occur. They are hardly considered a thing.
Uncle Jack seems strangely agitated.
Your guardian is very emotional.
This noise is extremely unpleasant and sounds as if he was having an argument. I do like arguments of any kind. They're always vulgar and often convincing.
It seems to have stopped now.
I wish I would find some conclusion. This pain is terrible. I hope it will last.
Is this a handbag, Miss Prism? Examine it carefully. The happiness of more than one life depends upon your answer.
Yes, it seems to be mine. Oh, yes, here is the entry I've received for the upsetting often I had them placed there in an extravagant mood. Oh, the bag is undoubtedly mine. I am delighted to have it so unexpectedly restored to me. What a great inconvenience without it all these years.
Miss Prism, more is restored to you than just this bag. I was the infant you placed inside of it.
You?
Yes, Mother.
Oh, Mr. Worthing! I am unmarried.
I do not deny that that's a serious charge, but after all, who can cast a stone against one who has so suffered? Cannot repentance wipe out an act of folly? Why must there be one law for men and another for women? Oh, Mother, I forgive you.
Mr. Worthing, there is some error. There is a lady who can tell you who you really are.
Lady Bracknell. I hate to seem inquisitive, but would you kindly inform me of who I am?
I am afraid the news I have to give will not altogether please. You are the son of my poor sister, Mrs. Moncrief, and consequently Algernon's elder brother.
Algy's elder brother. And I had a brother after all. Oh, I always knew I had a brother. I had always said I had a brother. Cecily, how could you have ever doubted I had a brother? Oh, Dr. Chasuble, my unfortunate brother. Miss Prism, my unfortunate brother. Gwendolyn, my unfortunate brother. Oh, Algy, you scoundrel, you will have to treat me with more respect from now on. You've never acted like a brother in all of my life.
Until now, old boy, I admit. Of course, I did my best, however, I was out of practice.
My own! But what own are you? What is your Christian name now that you have become someone else?
Oh, good heavens, I completely forgotten that point. Your decision on the subject of my name is irrevocable, I suppose.
I never change except in my affections.
What a noble nature you have, Gwendolyn.
Then the decision had better be cleared at once. Aunt Augusta. A moment, please. When Miss Prism had left me in the handbag, had I been christened already?
Every luxury that money could buy, including christening, had been lavished upon you by your fond and doting parents.
Then I was christened, that is settled. What was my Christian name? Go on, let me hear the worst of it.
Well, being the eldest son, you were naturally christened after your father.
Yes, but what was my father's Christian name?
I cannot at the present moment recall what the General's Christian name was. I have no doubt he had one. He was eccentric, I admit, but that was in later years and only due to the Indian climate and marriage and indigestion and other things of that kind.
Algy, you don't recall what our father's Christian name was, do you?
My dear boy, we were never even on speaking terms. He died before I was a year old.
His name would have appeared on the army records of the years, I suppose, Aunt Augusta?
The General was essentially a man of peace, except in his domestic life, but yes, I have no doubt that his name would appear in any military directory.
The army list of the last 40 years. These delightful documents should have been my constant study. Oh, and generals. Malum, Maximum, Magley. Oh, what ghastly names they have. Markby, Mixby, Mobbs, Moncrief. Oh, Moncrief! Lieutenant, 1840. Captain. Lieutenant Colonel, Colonel. General, 1869. All right. Christian names. Earnest John. Well, I had always told you, Gwendolyn, that my name was Earnest, didn't I? Well, it's Earnest after all. I mean, naturally, it is Earnest.
Yes, now I remember that the General was called Earnest. I knew I had some particular reason for disliking the name.
My own Ernest! I felt from the first you could have no other name.
Oh, Gwendolyn, it is a terrible thing for a man to suddenly realize that for all of his life he has been speaking nothing but the truth. Can you forgive me?
I can, for I feel that you are sure to change.
Oh, my own.
Letitia?
Oh, Richard! At last!
triviality.
Oh, on the contrary, Aunt Augusta. For the first time in my life, I have realized the vital importance of being earnest.